Hey there friends, we are making our way through fall and the trees are looking increasingly bare around us. The animals like the squirrels are squirreling away their supplies for the winter. And you know, I think when a squirrel is laying up supplies for the winter, the squirrel is doing it as something that needs to be done, as a way that provision will be received, but in a way that really is not anxious. And that is something that we are working on in the generosity practice in this stretch of weeks, as we take that up in worship and in post-worship video-based groups. The conviction that God is at the heart of life, at the heart of creation, and God is a generous, joyous giver and provider, which doesn't mean that we don't do what's prudent, but it does mean that we can live increasingly without anxiety. We can live increasingly with a heart that loves to give. And so, if you're like me, you have been taking up the generosity challenge, and perhaps you set aside a certain amount of money for the week. It doesn't really matter how much, but the point is that we set something aside and look for a way to be generous. And so we'll tell the stories of what that was like for us when we get together again on Sunday. And last Sunday, I saw what I think was a beautiful parable of God's generosity. One of the games we play in the church office is to try to anticipate how many people are going to come to a worship service so we can have enough bulletins, and if it's a communion Sunday, we can provide enough communion elements. Well, last week at Amber's ordination service, the outcome exceeded expectations. We planned on something like 75 people. We had almost 90 in the service for worship, which meant that our ushers had to run back and fill up some more communion cups and make sure we had enough bread, and we had to do a little bit of rationing on the bulletins. But isn't it the case that God so often comes through in a way that is bigger than we expected? And I think the more we practice generosity and the more we live with God as a generous and joyous and giving God, the more we'll come to anticipate that God won't just be enough. God will be more than enough to provide for us in the life that God is giving us to live. Very shortly, you will receive a letter from the church inviting you to consider a gift for 2025. This might be a pledged gift, and we really do encourage pledges. It's helpful to have pledge amounts for our financial planning, knowing that pledged amounts can change and there's nothing written in stone. But regardless of whether it's a pledge or a gift that comes without a pledge, giving in the church is a way for us to be part of God's generosity and to take part in the mission that God is working out in CPC. So let's continue exploring how it is a blessing to live in relationship with a generous God, loving God, sharing relationships, serving others from the heart of Christ.